So when it comes to COVID-19, we know that it's important that at this time, if an employee is feeling unwell, we want them to be able to self-isolate, regardless if they've seen a doctor, or even if they've gone and had a test and it's been tested positive or not. This means that we need to be able to provide them some sort of mechanism to easily report their symptoms so that they won't be coming into work. The EH&S application empowers employees to report online from the comfort of their own home. So this can be done through Web Central, which is the view that we're seeing right now, in addition to the mobile application if you have that deployed within your organization. Within this reporting window, one of the other things I want to point out is that we can not only use this to report for employees within our organization, but also for people that might be visitors or contractors to our site. So let's say that your organization becomes made aware that someone who's attended your site is unwell. You can also log this information for reporting purposes too. Once an incident has been reported, it can then be tracked and managed through a complete incident lifecycle using the Track Incident task that's part of the application. As you'll see that once I've landed on this page, all incident information is visible, and you can see that there is a series of COVID symptoms here that are showing up and that have been reported. By going in and clicking on a particular incident, I can pull up the information that's been originally reported by an employee, in addition to adding in new information as required. So from an EH&S perspective, clearly it is important then when we are collecting information that that information is going to add value to us as an organization, especially when it comes to reporting. This is where something such as Archibus's flexible architecture is extremely valuable, as it allows you to define a variety of different items that you can use for tracking purposes. So for instance, how I've gone and approached this demonstration is that for the incident type, I've added in an incident type of COVID symptoms. And then for the injury category code, I've added in the option that somebody could potentially have the flu, or they could have actually gone and tested it positive for COVID-19. The reason that I chose this approach was because we do want to encourage people to report when they are not well and be able to respond proactively. So be made aware that they're feeling unwell and potentially do things such as clean their workstation. But I don't want to have it so that we're creating unnecessarily alarm and then assume every workplace incident is going to be COVID-19 related. So by going and presuming all initial reports are suspect by assigning them the incident type of COVID symptoms, and then clarifying that information later on once we get additional information from an employee, so things such as that injury category code, whether it's going to be the flu or COVID-19, we can then accurately track the amount of COVID-19 cases within our organization. Now, once we have this information put in here, the other thing that we can have is that when an employee has actually reported an incident, this can be directly linked to their site information. So their workstation information that's already part of the Archibus system. So again, highlighting the fact that we can have that integrated capabilities and be able to track things accordingly down to that spatial level. Also, organizations might elect to use what's referred to as this medical information tab here. And the reason being is if we do have somebody within our organization that has tested positive for COVID-19, we want to make sure that we can understand the severity of their actual illness and then what we might require on our end as they return back to work and what that duration might look like until they come back to our organization. From an incident response standpoint, another part that I wanted to point out that ties into when we're actually tracking information within our organization is the ability to go within the background data and define this root cause category code. So another aspect that we've heard when it comes to COVID-19 is that when somebody is actually positive for the virus, it can be one of three mechanisms in which they contracted it. So I've gone and actually added that into the system here, whereby the first is travel. So let's say you had an employee within your organization that had recently traveled. You can track that as the root cause associated to the reporting. The other one is personal transmission. So let's say that somebody has known somebody who has traveled recently or somebody else that has been exposed to COVID-19. You can track that as the exposure method as well. And then lastly, we have community transmission. So those cases where somebody has actually contracted the virus, but we're unsure how. So this is something else that can be useful to your organization to determine how these incidents are actually getting into your facilities and how to manage them accordingly. For those who have just reported that they have flu-like symptoms, alternatively, I've just been marking them as unknown. Also, as part of our incident response, we have the capability to go and generate a service request, in which you can see here I've actually generated a service request for this particular incident. What I've done for the service requests that are dealing with COVID-19, and I'll get into a little bit more detail when we go into the maintenance side of things, is that I've actually created a specific problem type that deals with COVID-19. So using the actual housekeeping tier 1, and then I created a tier 2 level of COVID sanitization. This means that it's going to have a separate SLA and a workflow associated with it, so you can have these triage in a different manner within your organization. The other aspects I wanted to point out is the ability to add work restrictions into your actual platform. And the reason that this can be effective is that, let's say you do have a series of people that are going to be reporting that they have COVID-like symptoms or they've actually contracted COVID-19. This allows you to actually analyze from a data perspective how long people are going to be away from the workplace, and then get accurate trends as people are coming back to work as to what that duration looks like. And so that ties into that metric on that alert page that we had seen on the homepage at the beginning. Lastly, within this area, we can view different types of documentation. So if your organization does require a doctor's note from employees so they can be off work, I know that not all do, but if it is something that you are asking for, this is where you can actually attach that doctor's note as part of the incident record. So there's a lot of different information through the actual incident reporting and tracking incidents and doing that investigation piece that we can go and we can capture. But how can we use that effectively to go and report? So there's a variety of reports and metrics that can be run within Archibus that are out of the box. If these reports, however, aren't necessarily capturing what you want, I do want to point out that organizations can always leverage something such as the View Definition Wizard to create their own custom reports and consolidate information into a variety of different views. But for the purpose of this demonstration, I did want to highlight 2 reports that I find particularly valuable. And the first is the incidence count report. So the incidence count report is an interactive drill down report at the end of the day. So I want to be able to group things based on building, and then that incident type I'm going to be looking at for COVID symptoms. When I go and I actually filter on this, it's now going to show me what my facilities look like from a COVID symptoms perspective and how many incident counts I've had per building. From here, because we said it's an interactive report, I can then click on a particular building, and then I'm able to pull up all of the incident details associated with that particular building, in addition to things such as the respective injury category code, as well as the root cause category code. And then I can export this information if I need to manipulate it further. So again, this is just a quick and easy report to kind of go and organize data and view a lot of that information that we can leverage for other reporting features. The last view that I wanted to show is the incidence map. And so the intent of the incidence map, and Nick had quickly covered this in his overview in the presentation, is this allows you to leverage your spatial information to show where reports of COVID symptoms have been made within your real estate portfolio. So again, I'm going to focus on where we've had reports of COVID symptoms. And in doing that, you can see that it's going to pull up my area in which I'm focusing. For those familiar with some of the data sets, I'm focusing on what's referred to as the Bedford site within Archibus. And it's showing me kind of here a heat map type overview as to what are the areas that have had COVID-like symptoms reported and which areas are kind of more severe based on the total number of incidents. Now, this is telling me how many people have reported COVID-like symptoms, but not necessarily how many people actually have COVID-19. So this is where I can go, I can get the information a little bit more granular and add in that injury category code that I had broken out previously. I can go and click show, and you'll see that this is now going to update, and it's demonstrating something such as this NCO5 building has a larger amount of COVID-19 related cases compared to the rest of this organization. I can then go and actually view more information about this area by leveraging the spatial information. So I can go and select a particular floor, and here it's going to actually be able to highlight for me what locations those COVID-related cases have actually been reported within the organization.